Hi Twinkle Stars, I'm Zephyr, an Italian artist, illustrator and writer. Welcome back to my channel, and in this video I'm going to tell you about my stories and my art journey so you can get to know me better, and hopefully it can be inspirational or just some sort of comfort for people who had similar experiences. So it all started when I was very young. I always loved to make up stories and scenarios and adventures in my head with the characters from my favorite cartoons. Then when I was about 8, I started to read and write my own stories, and often they were correlated with illustrations and drawings. Then when I was in middle school, I discovered mangas that were the comic counterpart of the cartoons that I used to watch when I was little, and that had always inspired me, not only graphically but also in the way they tell the stories. And then it started as an hobby, but it soon my passion grew so much I wanted to be an artist, and that I wanted to study art in high school. However, my parents thought that it was just a phase, so they decided to put me in a scientific school, even though I was a humanistic type of girl. And they say that if I was still sure I wanted to study art after high school, I could pursue it at university. However, I was really unhappy to be constricted to study subject that I didn't like, and so I often fight with my parents. In fact, I used to be a really cheerful and extrovert child, but due to the bullying and all the traumas and stuff, I started to lose my self-confidence and became really shy and introvert. And even now as an adult, I still struggle really bad to socialize and interact with other people. Years drawing, and especially my stories and my characters, became my safe place where I could be everything I wanted and forgot the bad stuff, even if only for a little bit. I also did my best to get better, to prove the others that they were wrong, that I would make it. But at the same time, I ended up through a loop of perfectionism and focused so much on others that I kinda lost the point, which was that I love to draw and work on my stories because they made me happy, and that I should have done that mainly for myself. But I also had some beautiful experiences. In fact, I decided to join an online fanzine run by independent artists, where I was able to test myself for the first time making a comic, experiencing deadline and stuff, and so I got really better, and also for the first time I made friends which shared my same passion and understood me, and I have beautiful memories about those times. Then just a little bit before the end of high school and my finals, I started to have some strange phenomena to my vision, which turned out to be visual snow syndrome, which is a neurological disorder that pretty much make my vision pretty static, like the old-fashioned TVs. Before knowing what it was, I was really scared. I thought I would never draw again. While the people around me, they were all concentrated and worried about the exam, and I was like, who cares about this exam? You cannot understand that I can lose what really matters to me. And that's when I understood that pretty much my priorities and the way I saw the world, to experience things in the world, I see it, was different by other people's. They didn't know what it meant to have this really big passion, that it's also a really big part of yourself and your life. Finally, after high school, I decided to join an art academy university, and I signed up in a bachelor degree for illustration, but But after I got accepted, I pretty much changed the stuff, and so I would ended up starting studying illustration only after my third year, or if I eventually like decided to follow in a specific master degree, which of course was what I wanted. So I ended up to like never attend. Instead, I went to a private art school to attend one, so I ended up not being fully satisfied with it. Then next year I decided that I still wanted to go to uni, and I entered foreign literature and languages bachelor degree. However, because of my like academic burnout, that I got a year off, which also like made the people around me pressure me and kinda gave me the vibes that I was a burden and a failure because I lost a year and I was behind my peers. I had an art time in my first semester, and I ended up having a whole identity crisis and like burnout, both academically and artistically, because I also was deluded by like my experiences in art school, and just because growing up, of course I realized that it was true that it was an easy word, a secret words and stuff like that. So I kinda got a bit discouraged, and I shattered under the pressure of like everything, and I also lost the joy in drawing and just lost myself really. And I remember that in that moment I wished so bad to get back to like the old good times when I was little and I was happy, everything was just fun and giggles. But I needed to make a choice, so I either grew up and like abandoned my dreams and gave up, even though I didn't want to, because of course I like invested a lot of time and resources, but of course it was what made me happy, and it was really big part of myself and what made me. So meant like pretty much giving up my real self, but it also felt unfair to myself and especially to like young me. In fact, I have a really dear and special project that it's called Fable, and you may already know a little bit about it. Yes. And this is a really dear project to me because these are characters that have been following me since I was a child. They were the characters and the story that started everything. I specifically started to write and draw to like give life to this particular story. This was the word that kept me going, where I refugied when things go. So as a project where I poured a lot of myself into, not only emotionally but also in terms of experience of my life, even though of course it's a fictional story. I collected many like pieces and ideas for it. I was never fully able to like put all the elements together. At the inspiration, I found the idea that led me to connect all the point of the plot. That it felt really magical because I suddenly regained the love to like create and drawing. I really brought the sparkle back, and not only like drawing and writing felt funny again, ended up being a turning point in my life in all like aspects. In fact, I not only regained the joy in art but also the joy in life, and even as university I was able to like lock in and recover all my exam. However, I ended up taking some time off social medias to like really heal my wounds and just experience art again only for myself. But I ended up going back again after I think 6 months with a lot more positivity and energy than before. And not much after that we ended up in like the pandemic, and I remember that it was of course a really scary and hard times for everyone, being forced to stay at home, but at the same time, having so much time, I was able to like get really more active on my socials, and also to like experiment and test myself again. That's when I started working for the first time again on one of my stories. So I went back on the web with a new web comics that it was like born from the old story I made for the fanzine, even though it was a completely different things, but the characters were the same. I also took my art and social media really seriously, and comics and stuff. I was also able to graduate and get my bachelor's degree, and the pandemic ended, so we all got back to the real world, even though the situation was the easiest, especially job-wise. I didn't have much lucky, so I ended up deciding to get back to uni to get my master's degree and become a teacher, which funnily enough is the only job I did wanted to do. However, I'm really happy with my choice, and hopefully I will be able to be the teacher and the adult that I wish to had at the time when I was struggling in school but never had. I also had no luck artistically speaking, so that discouraged me again, and I also started to have new health problems. I started to experience a lot of pain in my hands and like wrist and arms, and it soon like expanded to the rest of my body, and I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and it's a condition that affects the muscles and ligaments. In my case, it kind of feels like I have permanent tendinitis in my body, so when you touch some specific point, they really hurts. And also I sometimes have like some flare-ups where the pain gets really bad, but once again, even though sometimes hard, I did my best, like keep going and just adapt and to live with this chronic illness. However, I was soon hit with another really bad art block and burnout, unable to resolve this art block this time, and I ended up just like accept it and go on. Like I knew I will never stop to draw. However, I was starting to have many doubts on my path and on my like dreams and goals, which I also feel it's pretty normal. Like as we grow up, so those our passion, and like we change our goals, the person we are changed, our needs they change. So I realized that maybe I just like the goals and the dreams I choose when I was younger no longer serve me, like no reflect me well, that maybe there is just another path for me, that especially artistically speaking. So I'm doing my best to like not let this like burnout get over me, and just like doing what I love, giving myself time, because another thing that surely I learned is that this is not a competition, and that everyone is different, and so it's our story, our path. In fact, we are all different in the way we experience the world and the way we react. We also have different backgrounds and possibilities that influence our path. So compare ourselves with others is not a fair comparison, and we should just give ourselves time, be patient, and just do our best and concentrate on ourselves. And so that was my story. I hope it was at least entertaining and that I kept you company for a little bit. Hopefully you will keep supporting me on my journey, and I will be able to find what is my path. So don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, follow me on my other social medias to keep yourself updated with my project, and I'll see you soon in a new video. Bye!